Okay, so now we've finished with space and you have your representation of an apple using the element of art space. Again, we're going to save what we're doing, right? We're going to lock this layer, we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to call this color. And then we're going to go to our artboard and we're going to navigate to our color artboard. So we've created whatever it is on our artboard and we want to represent the idea of apple with color. And so when you're using color, I want you to make sure you have your swatches panel open. So if it's not open, go to Window and Swatches. Here's your swatches panel. If you click here, you can change the way it's viewed. So maybe you want it to be a smaller thumbnail. And you can see some of the default ones you have here. So remember, when you select an object, you can change its stroke and fill here, but I want you to also make sure you have the appearance panel open. So here you can change its fill, you can change its stroke, you can do a lot of things, right? And I'm going to undo that. Within the stroke and the fill, something I want you to see is for both the stroke and the fill, but also for the whole entire object, you have other options. You can change the blend mode and the opacity, and you can do that for the whole entire object. So I'm going to show you what that looks like if I have two different objects. So I'm going to group this, and I'm going to make it smaller, and then I'm going to have two that one right on top of the other. So if I have this whole entire thing grouped, and I go in here and I change this blend mode, you can see that it changes its relationship with the objects below it. And this only does anything if there's something below it. So if you changed its blend mode and it's by itself, it doesn't really do anything. It's only when it's overlapping with other things. Now you can change the blend mode for a whole entire object, and you can also change the blend mode for a specific object within here. So for example, if I just have this shape of the apple and I'm overlapping it, I can play around with selecting one of these, changing the fill, and changing different aspects about it. So it's the whole entire object, but it's also the specific fill and the specific stroke. So for the fill, I could change this to overlay, and I can change the opacity. So there's a lot of things that I can do there. I can also give it multiple fills, and here you can see you can add a new fill and add a new stroke. So I could have multiple fills, say I have patterns and stuff like that, and I can have multiple strokes. So these are things to think about. You can really manipulate how many strokes and fills and all that kind of stuff and play around with the idea of color. How can you still represent an apple using color? Another thing that I want to talk to you about in terms of color is right here you can see you have a little library, and here you have a lot of swatches library. So you can have a lot of other colors here that you can play around with. So you can look at some of the colors they have maybe for earth tone or for nature. So that's the other thing that I want you to play around with. Have your objects, manipulate the colors, use the appearance panel, and play around with the swatches library.